Attendance enabled, guys. Is there a class going on?
It's probably because people are coming from the professional education class.
Okay, fine. Uh, so I think let's see how many people are already there. It's already 11:08. So who all decided to be chauffeurs today? I had one. Just a minute. Let me check. Uh, Akshay. So Akshay is Akshay there? No, because he's supposed to be a shepherd. Has the class ended, guys? Has it?
Sir, I think people had trouble finding the link. I'll share it once on the group.
Okay. Okay. It's the same link that we've been using for some
Sir,
time.
actually, right now, actually, professional communication class is also going on. So it has been
Yeah,
extended.
but it would have ended at 11, right?
Yes, sir, but it was extended.
Okay.
Maybe they will join.
Okay, fine. So I think we are probably reaching 10 minutes mark. Can someone please talk to the who's taking that lecture, professional communication lecture?
Third Neelu ma'am.
Uh, can someone please talk to her because we've already lost 12 minutes now.
Sir, I said in the group. I don't know.
Okay. So I think we have enough people now. I just hope people will join. So I think Akshay had asked me to be the volunteer for to be the shepherd today. Akshay, are you here?
Yes, sir.
So Akshay, you are there, and I need 4 more shepherds. And as I said, yeah, this you are gonna get some more credits for shepherding today. So no one other than Akshay.
So I can like
The
upment him. Well, then.
sorry.
Like I can be with him. Like I can help him out a little bit.
Okay. Okay. So Anurag is one. Tejas is another. Kotishwar. Uh, actually, I can't read your name. It's just a roll number 17. So, uh, yeah, you would like to be a shepherd, so um, you can be. Okay, Nitikya. Okay, so Nitikya, Akshay, Anurag, Tejas, and Kotishwar. These are the 5 guys. Okay, so let me just add your names to the sheet. Okay, IT. Yeah, guys, please start with your roll numbers and sections. IT8. T8. Got it. Then IT7, 17, 44, 25. 7, 17, 25, 44, 7, 17, 7, 17, 25, 44. Got it. Okay, so we have 5 shepherds. So let us start straight away. Uh, Can you guys see my screen now? Is my screen visible? Okay, so you guys can start then. Okay, I'm muting myself.
So the first question is, what is the objective of pre-processing in C? So in the C language, when we write a program and when we try to compile it, so other than the compiler and loader, we have something called preprocessor. So when we define the header files, hash include stdio.h and other things. So what preprocessor does, it takes the copy, matlab, those files would have their declaration somewhere else in stdio.h file. So it takes the code from there and just copy paste the code. And while compilation, there is nothing like hash include I use stdio.h. There is that code. So that's how compilation takes place. So before compilation, the preprocessor does all these things.
So any questions? So the overall idea is that the preprocessor is more like a manager, and compiler is more like uh, the working professional. So manager's job is to collect all the work that the working professional has to do, right? So the preprocessor simply uh, prepares the code that is supposed to be compiled by the compiler. So all those preprocessor directives, they are not seen by the compiler. Before the code goes for compilation, the preprocessor does some pre-processing. So that is the overall idea of a preprocessor, that prior to giving your code to the compiler, if you want to make some changes, if you want to add something, those things are done by the preprocessor. Any doubts or queries on this?
No, sir.
Okay, so let's move to the second question.
Does this pre-processing increases the execution of program or decreases it?
First of all, the execution is a separate step altogether. Okay, you execute
I
the
mean
object code.
runtime.
Yeah, the runtime is not affected at all. It's like what preprocessor actually affects is the size of your compilation unit. Okay, so it can affect the time to compile your code. Execution is something else. Execution is you execute an executable. So once the executable is there, then it doesn't matter, right? In fact, the compiler doesn't even know whether a particular piece of code that it is compiling, whether you have written it or whether you have included it from some existing file. For the compiler, it is just some code to compile. So preprocessing is a step that is prior to compilation, and compilation is a step that is prior to execution. So these three steps are kind of independent of each other.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Any other doubts? Okay, so then we can move to the second question.
So we have already discussed the second question. So we can compare between the second and the third option. So preprocessor has two main works. So it processes hash include directive and it processes hash define directive. So what is the difference between hash include and hash define? So if we want a code from another file, another .h file or .c file, then we use hash include. And if we want a code to the copy pasting work from the same file, then we use hash define. So we find something with another name and use that name in the complete program, and when we try to execute it, the preprocessor just copy pastes or replaces that thing with another thing. So that's the difference between the second and the third question, and that's the work of preprocessor. Any other Shepherd would like to add? Or
So basically, let me just answer the yeah. If any Shepherd has anything to add, please add it. Then I'll talk about Gaurav's query. Okay. So basically, what happens is something like this. When you get let us say GCC, when you install GCC, the GCC is basically a collection of many utilities. Okay, one of that utility is the compiler. There are other utilities like a linker which links the code. The pre-processing, if I am not wrong, it is of course a part of the compiler executable itself, but it is not really the compiler. I mean, you understand that it is part of the same executable, but it is a separate entity. Actual compiler, the part of that solution which compiles your code, that is the actual compiler, the C compiler. But before the C compiler is invoked, so it is more like a step A and step B kind of thing. Okay, so when you run the GCC part, in fact there is also step C. The linker is probably step C. So step A is where you do the pre-processing. Step B is where the compilation occurs, and step C is where the linking occurs. Now you can actually stop step C if you give the -C option. Okay, I'm not sure how many of you would have opened the additional reading part, but you can actually stop the compiler at, let us say, step B if you give -C switch. So then the linking part will not be tried. But this is the idea, that they are basically individual steps of the whole process. You might get them as one executable. Any questions? Okay. Okay. So even though they might be the part of the same, yeah, it's a compiler collection. Okay. So basically, it is a collection of many utilities together. So it's compiler plus some other things as well. So any questions? Okay. Yeah. So now I was so basically the difference between, let us say, hash define and hash include is that hash define is used to define smaller tokens. I would say that basically you say wherever you see this, just replace it with this. So that is the major job of hash define. Hash include is performed over over complete files, and as we will go to the question number 5. um, the inclusion part has its own tricks, right? I mean, you have to sometimes need some kind of conditional processing there. So the hash define part is a very simple substitution thing. It simply substitutes x with y. Whereas hash include part, that is actually going to copy and paste stuff from a complete file, which might even have some kind of conditional processing that we will discuss later. But any queries related to what exactly is hash include and what exactly is hash define, we'll discuss the common use cases in question 3 for hash define. But in general, any queries? Okay, so then the use cases of hash define, guys, the next question.
So would define be also be taken care of by the linker? Like who exactly will?
No, define is all a part of my hello.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so the hash define part is a pre-processor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other queries, guys? So the use cases for hash define.
So hash define can also be used as a function. So we can define. So can we use can you show the example for the same macros? How we
Yeah. So I'll show you the example of the square macro. Let me
Yes, sir.
just a minute. Square. Huh, this one. I'm stopping the share for now, and then I'll reshare this document. Application window.
So as you can see, has defined square x and then x into x. So whenever in the program, when you write square of any integer, you pass any value, so it will just replace that with x into x. So that's just like working like functions, but it is not functions, it is macros. So
Okay, so let me like come in here. So basically, the difference between let us say a typical function and a macro is that macro is something that is really dumb. Dumb as in it is just a kind of copy paste. Okay, so wherever you see square and in parenthesis anything, uh, it will actually be replaced before the code goes for compilation. It will be replaced by that thing asterisk that thing. Okay, so you can assume that this is what the compiler sees. It never sees that square x. It basically sees x asterisk x. Okay, so there are advantages of this and there are disadvantages of this. The advantage, of course, is that now you are not dependent. So let us say if you wanted to write a square function, you will require a data type, an input data type, a parameter of a particular kind, int, float, or double. And at the same time, you will also have to declare a return type. So the return type could be int, float, double, let us say. But this particular square macro can be used across data types. Any integer, any float, any double can be passed here because this is not really a function. You understand that at the end of the day, it is just replacing uh, a token, called x with x asterisk x. Okay, so this is why it is advantageous, but at the same time, it has some disadvantages because it's simple copy pasting.
sir, it will not check the data type of x.
No. You can, in theory, you can write a character array, char ARR, and then you can simply say ARR square ARR, and it will be replaced by ARR asterisk ARR. The problem is in that case, the compiler will complain that this is an illegal substitution or something like that. So basically, you'll get an error that ARR asterisk ARR is an invalid thing.
So sir, is it like the processor will just copy paste and not check anything, and then the
No,
compiler will check?
yeah, but the compiler will complain that this is an illegal thing.
Okay, sir.
And that is why, right? So basically there is actually no step. So while, as I said, right, let us assume that there are three steps A, B, and C. C being the linker. You have the option of not performing the linking. So if you give -C switch, then the linking part will not go through, but there is no way to segregate step A and step B. Step A and step B will always happen in that particular order, because step A and B, I mean, it's like a pipeline. The output of step A goes to step B. So if the substitution is illegal, you will know it straight away because the compiler will figure it out. But the problem is it can somehow, sometimes it might not give you a compilation error. Okay, I gave this example to the previous batch. So let us say you write something like this, square I plus plus. Okay, so you expect that, what will you expect? Something like this. Let us say sq1 equal to square I plus plus. If you write something like this, what will you expect? You will expect that, let us say I is currently 5, so then it should be SQ1 will become 25 because it is post increment, and then I will become 6, right? This is what you expect, that if it was a function, um, I equal to 5 would have been passed as the parameter, then in the square 5 into 5 would have happened, and then SQ1 will get 25, and then I will become 6. But what really happens is that this code gets replaced by this. Okay, because as I said, it is simple dumb copy paste. Now you can understand what is the risk here. What is uh, yeah, someone has a question. Uh, it doesn't, yeah, it doesn't matter. So basically then it will become like this, right? Uh, I plus plus asterisk I plus plus. Get it? I mean, it is just a simple substitution. Now x will become I plus plus in parenthesis. Okay, but it is still not going to give you the kind of result that you are trying to achieve, right? So basically, you have to assume that whenever you use a macro, it is a copy paste. So sometimes the effect of the macro will not be what you expected it to be, especially if you start using expressions instead of simple variables. Okay, it is allowed, you are allowed to use expressions, no doubt about it. But if a particular expression can have a side effect, something like I plus plus, yeah, in I plus plus is a kind of expression which can give a side effect, so then you have to be very careful. The value of I will become 7, but we really don't know whether it will be 30 or not. This is the problem, that in the C standards, it is not defined that if you try to change the value of a particular variable twice in the same statement, what is, how is it going to be affected? What final result? It is actually kind of undefined. Undefined as in we really don't know. Of course, there will be some implementation, but the standard doesn't define what will be the answer. Whether it will be 30, whether it will be 36, I don't know. Okay, it could also be 36, for example. So you can probably try and check. But the idea is it is not defined. You should never try to change the same value twice, same variable twice in the same expression. I becoming 7 seems to be fairly likely, but this I plus plus into I plus plus, I don't know exactly what will be the value. It could be 35, 30, it could be 36, 6 into 6, I don't know. But basically it is certainly not going to be 25. That is the idea. Okay. Any
So
other?
can we
Yeah, go ahead.
so can we see the precedence and all to check what the value will be? So if it will be from left to right or right to left, we cannot do
You
that.
can do that, but the problem is all those left to right, right to left rules. They are when you have different variables. The problem is when you apply when you try to change the value of the same variable two or more times in the same statement. The C standard doesn't define what will happen. Okay, so it's like uh, we really cannot say what will happen. I mean, it's implementation specific, and there is no standard
No, sir, we cannot hear you.
Hello, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, some WebEx issue, I don't know. I just unjoined and joined again. Uh, Anyhow, yeah, we were in the middle of some discussion. What was it? I completely forgot. So yeah, anyhow, the idea is that you should not try to change the value of the same variable twice or more in the same expression. Then it's the behavior is not defined. That is the idea. You should not try to do it. Do not try to come up with a rational explanation. That is the idea. Okay. Okay. So yeah, what is the next question? How much we have covered? Let me just reshare the screen. Mm, Okay, can you guys see my screen again?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what all things have we talked about? Macros we have discussed. So this now, yeah, any queries about macros? No queries? Okay, then we can move to the next question, guys. Last one. The
So
last.
just so the fifth problem. So most of us must have seen that when we declare a data type twice, like in the some part of the program we do int x, and in some other part when we again try to do int x, so it shows error. So in the similar way, when we include a file, when a part of the code repeats, so that the compiler shows error, and that problem is multiple inclusion problem.
So anyone else would like to add anything?
Sir, can you maybe share the slide in which you explained?
Yeah, sure. Just a minute. So you can actually check from here onwards. Let me first show you the hash include example. Then we'll move to the multiple inclusion problem.
As we discussed, hash includes just copy paste the data from one file to another, and it is seen here that in green.x, yellow.x file has been copy pasted.
Okay, so now you can see this part.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when we see red.x file, in it was there are two multiple inclusions. First, we defined green.x, and in green.x, we had already defined yellow.x, and again we included yellow.x. So it is like the compiler will show a problem that we have included the same file twice, so it can't compile. That would be the error. We have seen this in our programs also. Unless we there is a problem of scope. Like if we define two variables with same name twice, the compiler doesn't compile. But there are of course some exceptions, like for global variable and a local variable, which we have seen. But it is like exception. We can rely on that. This we have to use functions like if, def, and all to resolve these issues.
So let me just go back to the chats. Any questions on this? So can you guys understand the overall problem? It is happening because hash include, just like hash define, is a very dumb directive. Okay, it is basically control C and control V only. So this is a problem with control C control V. Now can you understand what is it? Any questions on this? So basically, if a particular include statement it is processed twice, it becomes a problem. Okay, because the same thing will be added twice in the compilation unit. Okay, so this is a kind of multiple inclusion problem. Any doubts? And is there anything that you guys not understand with this picture? In fact, this is the reason that I used these colors and all. Okay, because uh, sometimes it is easier to imagine the stuff using colors. Right? So I was thinking how to make these slides. That is why I used colors. Uh, so can you now understand the actual issue here? The yellow part is getting included twice. Anyone who doesn't understand this part? Over adding. Yeah, it is the similar case as you must have just talked about. These guys have talked about, right? Is that if you write int x and then you write int x again, right? It is the same problem. The compiler will say, there are multiple definitions for x, and I really don't know which one is the one that should be used. So the same thing is there when you actually put something twice in the code. It's like, as I said, there might be some cases where it will not be a problem. Um, so there might be some code that you can repeatedly write. Okay, so you can write, for example, arr I equal to 5. If yellow.x only has this statement, I mean, I'm taking a very stupid uh, example, but still. So if the yellow.x content contains statements that can be added twice or n number of times in a program, and it doesn't make and it is not wrong, then you are fine. But almost always there will be some declarations, and those declarations are going to cause a problem because that will be a case of multiple declaration. So why is this a problem? If you understand why is this a problem, then the solution is uh, uh, it's easier to understand the solution. But first try to understand the problem. So Vanshdeep, it's like this. What will you try it sometime in your program. Just declare something like this, int x, and then 2 lines later you again write int x, and see what does the compiler say. The compiler will have a problem with it, right? It will tell you something like multiple declaration for x. I mean, I don't know what will be the exact message, but it will be something on that line. That I'm finding 2 declarations for x or something like that. So the same problem is here. When you do this hash include, the hash include is a very dumb thing. Dumb thing as in it is going to copy stuff from one file and simply paste it at another place. Okay, it doesn't know whether this file has been pasted already. Okay, there is really no way for hash include to know this. So what happens is whatever is the content of your yellow.x here in this case, it will become a part of your compilation unit twice. That is the problem. So in most cases there will be an error. Okay, this is the actual problem, that whatever was defined in yellow.x, the code of yellow.x is getting repeated at the time of inclusion. So it is going to give you the same kind of errors as int x kind of thing. Is it clear? Yellow dot, so they are C files, right? I mean, they are on the disk. So I created a file called yellow.h, for example, and then when I created green.h, I wrote the statement hash include yellow.h. So from yellow, so whatever code I wrote in yellow.h, it gets copy pasted at the top of green.h. Okay, that is what the diagram shows. Now I wrote another program file, another file, let us say red.h, and then I wrote 2 include statements, include green.h and include yellow.h. So then again the preprocessor will find out where yellow.h is, where green.h is, and then it will simply copy paste it there. Is it clear? I mean, temporary variables. What exactly are temporary variables?
So like we are using in for loop for int x equal to 0.
So that is about scope, yeah. So basically the idea is this: as long as you are including a code um, where there is no scope clash, right? So when you write something, first of all, this writing int x inside the for loop, the actual C standard doesn't allow you. I mean, the original C standard, I think in C99 onwards or something like that, it has been allowed. But otherwise, you are supposed to declare all your local variables at the start of the function itself. But yeah, you are right that if there is no scope clash, then yeah, then maybe it is fine. But usually in header files, we write clash, right? So that is why I said that in some peculiar cases it might not be a problem, but in most cases it will be a problem. Oh, that one, Shdeep. Yeah, so hash include has 2 ways to do it. If you use the this sign, then it checks it at a particular location. There is an include folder on your machine, something like uh, /usr/include, something like this. There is a particular folder where it is going to search for the file, and if you use hash include with this, then it will search for that file in the same directory wherever is the source file. Okay. Any other queries? So yeah, so is the problem clear now? What is the problem? Because then we can have a look at the solution. If you still don't understand the problem, you can still ask questions. Okay, so I'm assuming that the problem is clear. The solution for this is conditional pre-processing. So conditional pre-processing is here. So basically, just like if else cases, if else statements, you can write certain types of statements. So by the way, your actual if else statements are processed by the compiler. These hash if and hash elif things. Yeah. So in fact, let me see, where is it on my Mac? I'm not sure. It will be slash usr/include, I think, on Ubuntu, but on Mac, let me just check. Usr, I don't think it is there. Local, maybe /usr local include. Let me just a minute. Yeah, it is not there. I don't think so. So yeah, Mac is different. So, but I think on Linux it will be somewhere there. USR include or USR local include. It's a predefined place. So I'm not sure where. Um Yeah, it could be in Xcode, maybe in Xcode. I have to check. So I'm not sure where will we do these folder paths in on Mac. Um, I think I have uninstalled Xcode also. It was taking too much of space. So so yeah, I whenever I need to code something, I simply start a Ubuntu VM and I write my code there. So anyhow, yeah, but basically the idea is that this, whenever you use this, it's a predefined place. Okay, it's a predefined place, pre-configured place. And whenever you use this, that is just the current directory. Okay, any other yeah, so that is right. The compilers folder, so the compiler gets installed somewhere in Windows, right? And uh, the so the idea is that it is known as the include directory. The actual path of the include directory depends on the platform. It might be different on Ubuntu, it might be different on Fedora, it might be different on Windows, it might be different on Mac. But the idea is that your compiler knows that, okay, that this is the place where I will find it. So all your standard header files are stored at one particular location, and they can be picked up from there. So any other doubts on this? Okay, so then if that part is clear, so ideally, so what happens is, just like there are conditional statements that your compiler processes, your preprocessor is also capable of processing some conditional statements. So conditional preprocessing is done using things like hash if or hash else. In fact, I think I would have written it somewhere, right? Have I? Not. Huh. So here, so there are actually things like okay, I think I forgot to add it. There are things like hash if, hash else, something like that. I think I wrote it somewhere. Hash if or hash else. It is there. So this is the idea, that if you want certain things to be uh, parsed or processed only when a particular condition is true, this is the general way to do that. Of course, this should return an integer, 0 or 1. And then only then will the preprocessor go inside this. That is the idea. And there is another very commonly used yeah, go ahead. There was some question. I thought there was a question. Okay, so basically one of the ways in which we protect against multiple inclusion is by a method like this. So what we do is, let me just make it full screen. So what we do is something like this. We define a constant, okay, a constant, let us say underscore yellow, okay, and we say that uh, whatever we want to include from yellow.x, on the top of it, the first statement we'll put is hash defined underscore yellow, okay. So whenever this particular statement gets executed, everything below will be processed by the preprocessor. Now what we do is we put a check over this, if and def. So if and def essentially means if not defined. So what this means is something simple. Um, Whenever this statement is processed anywhere, hash include yellow dot x, the preprocessor will go and check and see whether this underscore yellow token has yet been defined or not for the current compilation unit. If it is defined, then this whole part gets skipped. Okay, it simply goes up to the end if it is not defined, then all this gets included in your file. So this is a very simple trick where I actually say if not defined, then define this and do this, and then from here onwards, it doesn't matter how many times I include yellow.x anywhere in my code, it will only be included once. And if you don't understand this, it's fine, it's a very advanced concept, but I did not want to leave this out, because if you're talking about the C preprocessors, um, without talking about if def and if and def, the discussions do not end. So I've just added it. um, Please understand that if you don't get it straight away, it's fine. I have created these lectures so that, let us say in second semester or third semester or fourth semester, somewhere in your life you want to read more about the C pre-processing, or how exactly um, programs are compiled and executed. On that day you will have this. Okay, these lectures will be there, these slides will be there, and you can have a look at it. Okay, you can come back to this knowledge sometime later in your life, if you're not able to understand it today, if you feel it is too much to grasp at this point of time. Okay, so the idea is that you will have this lecture module with you, and you can watch it later as well, right? Okay, any questions?
Sir, the underscore, is it inside the syntax or something else?
It's a convention. It's a convention that usually when we declare variables, we don't start them with underscores, right? So the idea is this underscore yellow has to be unique across my compilation unit. That is the problem. So how do I choose a name which is unique for my header file? So there are some conventions that people use. They use underscore or double underscore sometimes, so that the chances of a collision are extremely low. So it's like this. If I use the same code in green.x, then it is going to be a problem. Okay, I cannot write if and def underscore yellow in green.x as well. Then it will be a problem. There probably I will write if and def underscore green. Okay, the idea is that you have to choose a token which has to be unique. Okay, and how do I choose that? One way to do that is if you use double underscores. uh, it is highly unlikely that a user will declare a variable with the same name. That is the idea. So that's more of a convention. Any other doubts on this? So if you have no doubts, so basically today we actually end the ITP syllabus. Okay, uh, I think I don't know whether it was too much or not, but basically we have covered up everything. I tried my best to cover up a lot of things actually in this ITP course. Even though some people might say it is a bit too much, I thought ITP should not just be about introduction to programming. It should be introduction to computer science for you guys, so that now when you study other subjects you can somehow relate with it. So uh, yellow.exe file infinite times is the code to include the yellow.exe file infinite times. Where are we doing it infinite times? I don't understand.
No, sir. I was saying that you said that we can include the hash, the yellow
Yeah,
dot
this, yes.
x files 4 or 5 times, and the compiler won't give a problem. So the code for that is included in the yellow part
No,
of the
the
file.
part is, see, this is the only part that is required, right? I mean, once you put this guard, let me just Once this guard is put in, now this part can only be it can only occur once in your overall compilation unit. So you can see that here the red.x part, it only contains yellow.x once. Okay, the content, that yellow part content is only once. Even if I write hash include yellow.x 10 times here, it is still only be included only once. And that is the overall idea. Is it what you were trying to ask?
Yes, sir.
So I mean, actually I have changed the slides in the reference book. Okay, in your reference book, if you go and check out this, what is the section number? 4.11. Please, it's about 3 or 4 pages. So in the reference book, the book by Cunningham and Ritchie, if you go and read section 4.11, you will get an idea. It's a very simple, a short explanation. So if you do feel, if you would like to know more about the preprocessor directives, please read the section 4.11. That will give you a good idea. Okay. So basically this is the end of our ITP part. From tomorrow onwards, we have 3 more classes. There is no class on Monday. Monday I am not free. So you are free on Monday. But we will have classes on the next Tuesday and next Wednesday, and a class tomorrow. So we have 3 lectures for revision. There will be no attendance in these three lectures. So you can only come if you wish to, and otherwise you're not required to come to the lectures. That is the idea. So from here onwards, I'm not maintaining attendance. So that is it from my side as far as the ITP part is concerned. We will have a revision, but we will revision as in we will talk about I'll start from the first lecture. I'll just like spend 5 to 10 minutes on the first lecture, that this is what the first lecture was all about, this is what the second lecture was all about. So we'll try to go through lecture by lecture, and in a live fashion, and you guys can say, okay, probably this part I forgot, or I think this part I had a doubt with, but I didn't ask it at that time. So you can come up with your queries, that in these 3 lectures that we will have, I can, in fact, I'm still not sure what is the best way to revise. Should I talk about the lectures, or should you come up with problems or questions and I answer them? I really don't know. The idea is I kept 1 week just for revision, so that any doubts across the whole syllabus that you might have, we can take it up and we can discuss them. Okay, so we'll
So
start.
what about the labs?
See, the idea is I discussed it yesterday as well. I'm not sure whether with you or with the other guys. That I think, see, I want to take a lab exam as in where the TAs will take a demo and ask some questions, but scheduling it is becoming a problem because of your timetable. I realized that the theory exams, yeah, all the topics that we have covered. So the major issue is scheduling that lab. So here is a proposal from my side. In fact, this is what we used to do with in the BTech. This is what our university used to take exams. That the theory exams were scheduled before, and then lab exams used to be scheduled right after the theory exams. So I checked that I think your theory exams are ending on March 20th. So would you guys be open to giving a lab exam after the theory exam itself, or shall we schedule it before the theory exam? So then if we schedule it before, it will be in the night time sometime. Okay, 9 to 12 kind of slot.
So by after you mean if the theory exam is tomorrow, so the lab will be day after tomorrow, or
No. So basically it ends on March 20th. Your exams end on March 20th. This is what I checked, right?
so you
It
mean
starts
after the 20th?
after the 20th.
So
So
that will be the best option.
right,
I
so
guess all
21st or
the students will
22nd, maybe
agree to.
something like that. So 22nd, I think you'll get 1 day of time, but 22nd is what I'm thinking about. If you guys are open to that, we can have your lab exam after your theory exams, or if you feel no, I just want to relax after 20th, whatever you want to, whatever exams you want, just take it before. Then we will schedule it maybe on the Friday in the 9 to 12 p.m. slot. It's up to you guys. You can tell me, because I also feel 20 after 20th it will be much easier for you guys, right? The pressure of theory exams would have been over. You can probably enjoy the 3 hours of programming. Uh, so I mean, this is what I felt, but it's up to you guys. So who is going to take up the responsibility of creating a poll for this? Someone please create a poll within your batch.
So that we will decide ourselves and let you know quickly.
Huh. But I need to know it by no, latest by Wednesday evening, because if I have to take it on Friday, I will have to talk to the TAs and everything. So,
So we will probably take 1 or 2 day only.
huh. So
for this.
please, so Dhruv, you are going to tell me from after taking inputs from both batches. Okay.
Okay,
So,
sir.
so please tell this to me by Wednesday evening. That what is the opinion? I feel this option is a good option, because overall your pressure will be much less. Okay. uh, but I you have everyone has to agree to it, because this will be between us and between you and me. The institute should not be involved, because they expect that everything has to be completed by March 20th. um, but I am giving you this leeway that we can continue even after March 20th. Okay. So let's try to figure it out, and please tell me, because my contract is till I submit the grades. Okay. So I think I'm supposed to submit the grades by 23rd or 24th. So I know after that I'm not a faculty. So basically, I can give you the leeway of a couple of days, and we can do it on 22nd. Okay. So keep it like this: when you ask people, ask them that will it be fine to have the exam on 22nd, let us say, and otherwise we can have it on the Friday. Okay. So thank you guys. We'll meet tomorrow.
ये लैब के एग्जाम और
कितने sir?
अभी तक जो 4-5 लैब के एग्जाम हुए उनमें डिफरेंस क्या है सर?
इसका थोड़ा वेटेज हम हल्का सा ज्यादा रखेंगे, लाइक मे बी इसको हम कर देंगे 25%, और बाकी सारे लैब्स मिला के 75%, या इसको कर देंगे 30%, ऐसा कुछ करेंगे। समझ रहे हो कि
ओके
some some because this will be a 3 hour exam with demo and everything, right? So this will be probably a higher, it will have a slightly higher weightage. Huh. So basically, see, I'm not forced by the institute to take any exam for labs, okay? But I have to give you a grade, and till now, I think I only have 4 labs to grade you upon, and that too we have to apply the 10-3 policy over it. Okay, so I don't. My hands are tied. If you have not done well in those 4 labs, okay, you are going to get a very poor grade. That is the problem. Okay, so it's like if we'll keep one lab exam, and if even if you do better in either or, right, I mean, if you do well in the lab exam, then also I'll be able to give you a passing grade, or if you have done well in at least a couple of labs before, then also I'll be able to give you a passing grade. Basically, I need some more data in order to be able to give you guys some grades. So I think the lab exam way is easier. uh, okay, so that is what, Shashank, no, if you guys agree to a lab exam, I mean, of course we are not going to have any other lab, we are going to have a lab exam. It could either be on this Friday night, or it could be on 22nd, let us say. Okay, that is the either or that you guys have to decide upon. So Dhruv is going to somehow decide it. He will talk to you guys and talk over your your
So I have
info.
created the poll. I'll just share it to everyone.
So just info, you guys decide whatever you want, and we'll do it that way. But I need the answer by Wednesday evening, because if I have to conduct the exam on Friday, I'll have to uh, prepare the questions and everything. So please do it by Wednesday evening. Okay, guys. So tomorrow only those who would like to join can join me, but it's not necessary to come to the class from tomorrow onwards. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Sir, lab syllabus will be complete.
Now full, yeah, complete syllabus for the lab exam, complete syllabus. Okay. Okay. Any other queries, guys? Okay. Bye.